If you could take a moment to take your seats, we're going to begin our school board meeting. First of all, I want to thank you for coming out and welcome you for attending this special school board meeting for the 19th of January, 2016. For an administrative point, if you have a cell phone, if you could please turn it down or turn it off so we won't interrupt the meeting. With that being said, if the assembly could please stand, we have a quorum that's assembled. If they could stand, and Ms. Gramp, if you would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mrs. Gramp. As everyone can see, we have our agenda that's been established. We have a motion to accept the agenda.
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion to accept the agenda by Mr. Blaine, seconded by Ms. Blaylock. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The agenda is approved 7-0. Moving on to 2.01, our special report from our superintendent, the 2017 recommended budget. Mr. Baker, Dr. Baker.
Good evening. I've got a clicker and I don't know. There we go. There we go. Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen of the board, staff, and community, I want to thank you for your presence here this evening, this very cold evening, in providing me with the opportunity to share the Spotsylvania County Public Schools Superintendent's FY17 recommended budget proposal. This will be the fourth annual budget I have proposed as superintendent, and would like to express my gratitude first to the school board. I want to thank you for your individual and collective commitment to the highest quality educational experience for each of our nearly 24,000 students. And this is demonstrated by your visible engagement and teamwork throughout each season of challenge and opportunity, including this current FY17 budget season. While I feel confident in sharing that there are no longer routine or normal budget years, if there ever were, your continued sharp focus and contributions to this critical process will not be diminished, but instead heightened as we navigate through continued fiscal challenges in order to best position, advance, and fulfill our mission, vision, core values, and strategic goals outlined in our strategic plan. I am daily humbled, supremely blessed to work alongside an outstanding, dedicated, and high-quality staff. I want to thank the many staff members, parents, community volunteers, and especially students whose feedback and continued involvement is vital to informing and supporting the content and direction of this budget through various advisory teams, including teacher, budget, student, principals, the Spotsylvania Education Association, Mark Taylor, the county administrator, and the county staff. I am afforded powerful input. Special thanks to Ms. LaShawn Gaines, our Chief Financial Officer, and her entire finance team, along with my entire executive team, the cabinet, who have worked tirelessly to help develop this proposal with a keen eye toward increasing and enhancing quality to serve the needs of our students and staff. They, as this picture illustrates, though I'm a lot heavier than I appear, support and elevate my ability and humble attempts to lead with clarity and conviction. And I also believe, as I don't want to speak for them, but I think I can speak for my entire team when I say that our daily and life work, including this budget, is dedicated to our students who are the purpose and inspiration behind all that we do. Out of necessity and maybe even survival, leaders can often be confounded with many other areas of focus than quality. Sometimes it's an elusive term, quality. However, the theme of this budget proposal, at a time where, as will be illustrated, resources and funding remain tight and constrained, unable to keep up with expectations and demand, is that during these times, with our focus on quality, it needs to be on quality through continued improvement. It's absolutely essential that we maintain that during these difficult times. And though this is a budget presentation, I always like to take the opportunity when presenting a budget, especially if it has some challenges. It gives me the opportunity to talk about our organization. If you look at the author of this quote, William Edwards Deming, often referred to as a leader and founder of the quality evolution or movement, created and spread a message and method to individuals and organizations for continually improving themselves. His famous 14 points of total quality have served as management and leadership guidelines for over half a century. And while it would take infinitely longer than we have together to outline and explain his impact and philosophy, suffice it to say, much of the focus on purpose, vision, building trust, driving out fear, and yes, strategic planning models and frameworks are derived from his work. At times when reducing costs are often the objective, Deming believed that increasing quality and continuous improvement would ultimately drive up success and bring down costs. As an organization, despite significant and complex challenges, including fiscal ones, I believe we must remain sold out to increasing quality through continuous improvement processes. In our pursuit of quality through continuous improvement, how do we deliver services? On public education and also here in Spotsylvania County, our main business of delivering quality is through our schools, educational centers, and primarily our classrooms. From our 17 elementary schools to our 7 middle schools and our 5 high schools, and through our 2 educational centers, John J. Wright and the Spotsylvania Career and Technical Center, we make up many vital parts of a whole. And while we acknowledge the need for each school and center to serve effectively the needs of students and community, our division strives to continually align, transform, and renew our schools so that we may function as a high-quality school system. And in our business, quality services delivered in our schools and centers are often the embodiment of our people. These statistics, as you can see before you, provide a glimmer into that quality, yet I know that the board and many in the audience know that the sacrifice, the love, the talent, the dedication, the caring, passion, and daily impact of our people on the learning and lives of our students is positively profound. Quality as a standard or mindset does not come easy, as the Commonwealth's 11th largest out of 132 school divisions. These are our students. We have close to 24,000 students pre-K to 12, and I believe we can boast, at least from my perspective, of having the best students in the Commonwealth to serve. And I do. I only say that to our students. I don't say that to every student. Talented, determined, full of natural and unlimited positive potential, growingly and beautifully diverse, yet bonded as perhaps the most important generation that we will be relying on in the future. Back up. In terms of focusing on the future in this budget proposal, we can also see that our student demographics have changed over time, particularly in the number of minority students and students who are economically disadvantaged. Adjusting, targeting resources, and delivering services based on individual and collective student need is a primary function of this budget. Together, we prepare our students for their future. These words are not intended to represent a simple mantra or slogan, but rather a proclamation or affirmation, a powerful reminder and reinforcement of why we exist as a public school division in Spotsylvania County. It is expected that we pursue our mission vigorously and collaboratively, using it like a compass in growing a culture of quality and continuous improvement on behalf of our students and community. Developing a shared vision is fundamental for a quality organization, but enacting it is even more powerful. and what we are pursuing, more importantly, what we desire the future to become through our work and influence, should be integrated and enacted in the budget process. I want to submit to you this evening that the critical action component of a vision is affirmed, at least in one way, through the targeting of resources in the budget process. The current budget reflects our vision through many high-quality programs that are illustrated here, innovative, relevant learning opportunities for our students. What an individual organization values often translates into behaviors. The core values outlined in our strategic plan, though individually stated, help to operationalize and define who we strive to be as a whole system and how we aspire to engage and complete our work. We will know that we systematically emulate these values when our colleagues and the recipients of our services begin to characterize us by them. Like most large entities, we have an organizational structure and individual responsibilities, accountability, connected individuals, departments, and schools. However, I do indeed believe that quality is a we thing, not a me or a you thing. Collective success means collective accountability. I can more effectively lead schools when I am immersed in the work of and understanding the conditions of schools. Just as an individual working in a school can expand his or her effectiveness and impact by understanding how their contributions can improve the entire system in education for all students. So rather than divide and fail to conquer, we value organizational structures and understandings that lead to an effective blend of top-down, bottom-up improvements. Where we work the most, where our expertise lies, is where we are best positioned to improve and make decisions. We need to be in touch with the daily experience of our students and the classroom instruction and what is provided in the schoolhouses. In order to breed a kind of professional culture that places an importance on cultivating and nurturing positive leadership at all levels, we continue to enhance and expand opportunities for leadership development in our school division. If quality is everyone's business, then to a large extent, so is leadership. The structure and culture we continue to embrace and learn is in our work in professional learning communities. And these are the many ways in which we are cultivating quality and increasing leadership capacity. The big ideas are essential components of this leadership, instructional, and learning strategy. Not only exemplifies our mission, vision, and core values, but it's the primary way we engage in continuous improvement. Because time is a limited, precious resource for educators, engaging in a systemic collaboration about what is working or not in the classroom and school, and applying that knowledge strategically in a school and division is one of the most effective and efficient strategies for learning, growing, and improving. The shift from isolated individual work, independence and autonomy, to interdependence and teamwork is supported by these 4 questions, which we strive to address across our organization. Our hand-in-hand brand of organizational teamwork supports higher quality instruction and support, which is reflecting higher levels of student learning and achievement. Though I know that many in the audience, including the board, may begin to feel that they are reminded of our division goals ad nauseum. Over the past 2.5 years, we have committed our work and resources to continuously improving in these 3 areas directly in concert with one another. Budget implications are compelling relative to preparing every student to be ready, skills and knowledge, to confidently and successfully transition into post-secondary education or post-secondary career employment. Now more than ever, we must expand and strengthen our stakeholders and partners through engagement that includes proactive, varied, personalized communication. Then foundationally, we know that our goal of increased learning and proficiency for all students is deeply compromised if the learning environment is not safe, caring, engaging, and nurturing. The together and we does indeed mean an entire community or village. Educational and workforce needs of the future are less predictable and increasingly complex. So we need all of these partners and more to support our students. I think the partners are supposed to be there. I think something else has creeped up there. Let's see what comes next. Okay. And now we're back. So everything that I've illustrated and shared with you is to ensure that you recognize that the budget proposal for FY17 is not ill-informed or a random wish list, but part of a cyclical mechanism that is informed by and aligned with the strategic plan and direction that this school board has been instrumental in understanding and reinforcing through policy, budget development, and yes, superintendent evaluation. The board, like me, desires a systemic approach, because even positive accidents resulting from random improvement efforts can turn negative when they are unsustainable or in conflict with what is most important. So to ensure alignment and integration that leads to quality through continuous improvement, our processes are, in essence, for the long term, more important than our products. In the process of enacting and executing a strategic plan, these processes are just a few ways we accomplish the work as a system. As you peruse those processes, many of you in the room, including our school board, are intimately involved in these processes that keep us connected and informed as an organization. And over the past 3 years, we have continued to expand and intentionally connect these as we do our work together. One of the most recent processes for our school division that will guide budget investments in professional learning for teachers and leaders, learning environments for students, curriculum and technology integration is the Teaching and Learning Framework, which represents the top-down, bottom-up inclusive approach to improvement that I've been sharing. For our students, we must be compelled to always be better. We have strong teachers and leaders, but adding clarity and support to the quality of learning experiences our students receive is a natural and important progression. Quality staff, quality students, quality leadership, quality partners, and quality processes lead to quality results and achievements. There are too many to share on this presentation, but given the era of accountability we are in, I believe it is important to highlight some of the key metrics. Earlier in the presentation, look how quickly I can go back. This is the slide that somehow got misplaced, but this is, gives you an idea of many of the recent achievements that we can boast of and some that have been over a period of years. Illustrated here, you are reminded of the national and international stamp of quality from Advanced Ed. Spotsylvania County Public Schools remains one of only about a quarter of school divisions in Virginia to be district accredited. And we're back. And now, at this moment, we are on the edge of exceeding the state average for on-time graduation rate. This chart is a clear representation of incremental continuous improvement that we've made each year in that area. And though we as a division and you as a board have reinforced the idea that our work in public education and our students are much more than a test score, our staff, schools, leadership, and students' response, and I will say a systemic response to adversity under the pressure of higher, more rigorous accountability standards and assessments with little additional funding to support it, is to be highly commended. In 1 year, our school division went from being slightly below the state average in overall math performance to now slightly exceeding it. Through investments in literacy and professional learning, we also saw significant increases in reading and writing performance. These graphs visually illustrate the realization of system-wide improvement, particularly in the areas of grades 3 through 8. What they do not show, as the board was able to see back in the fall, is the startling and in a few cases skyrocket effect some schools achieved in 1 year. While improvement was seen throughout the state, our school division's responsiveness, pride, and teamwork resulted in almost completely reversing the trend in 1 year, because it hadn't even become a trend before we had turned it around. Our 2 schools that are partially accredited only missed the mark by a small percentage and in one area. For a large school division, this improvement in 1 year is evident. And while last year, Spotsylvania County Public Schools was performing alongside the state in terms of schools accredited with warning, we now have moved significantly above the state average in terms of the percentage of our schools that are fully accredited. Quality investments targeted to the classroom are one critical component of quality teaching and learning. We have been able to maintain reasonable class sizes, though averages do not always tell the full story, while also adding positions last year to address higher numbers and greater needs. I want to remind the board, as we will discuss this in the months to come, class size is only one variable, but I recommend that we continue to appreciate the cumulative effect when students increase and staff does not. Teachers and school staff are asked to be responsible for more than classroom lessons and report cards. As the complexity, need, expectations, requirements increase regarding meeting the needs of every child, so does the challenge of personalizing that experience through instruction, supervision, communication with parents, and providing feedback. By now, I'm confident that the board and many staff believe me when I say that the budget development process is connected to and aligned with strategic planning. However, given that resources are critical and our people are our greatest resource, the budget is a powerful tool for advancing the strategic direction and further fulfilling our mission. The FY17 budget process and this proposal is significantly influenced by our continued need and desire to sustain focus and maintain competitiveness in attracting and retaining highly skilled, dedicated, and essential employees through increasing compensation. Address the increasing levels of mandated and required services for our rising special education and English students of other languages, student populations. Increase, sustain, and restore classroom and school positions to support curriculum rigor and intervention in math and literacy for an increasingly diverse population. It addresses and is influenced by our need for increased and timely technology support. It's influenced by managing significant mandatory cost increases in health insurance and VRS. It is influenced by decreased enrollment, and is also influenced by an increased local composite index. To help clarify our budget position and development process, I'm breaking down some of the big picture or story of this budget into parts. Part 1 is our increases in mandatory costs, non-compensation investments, and our less revenue due to higher local composite index and lower K-12 enrollment. As you can see, our employer rates and required contributions for health insurance and VRS have gone up significantly for FY17. The unanticipated decline in enrollment by 139 students, coupled with the increased adjustment in the local composite index, has unfortunately negatively impacted the amount of total state funding we had hoped to receive. Sorry, back. Here you see a recent trend as it pertains to the local composite index. We are certainly hopeful that given this adjustment, we may receive additional local funding to offset that loss. Part 2 of the story is building an employee pay increase as a means of sustaining our commitment to and support of our primary agents of quality, our staff. Part of this part of the story has been preconceived as a sustainable inclusion from previous budget years. However, I want to thank the Compensation Focus Group, co-led by Ms. LaShawn Gaines and Ms. Michelle Colbert, and it included a cross-section of leaders from various employee groups. I want to thank them for their recommendations. This group will continue to meet and support this part of the story into the next budget as we strive to develop a feasible, sustainable, multi-year compensation plan and strategy. Some highlights for this part of the story are these recommendations. Several are focusing on compensation, and others are part of a restoration plan or gradual elimination, such as the activity fee. We are proposing a step and 1% pay increase for all eligible employees. A recommendation from the compensation focus group was to adjust frozen scales by a 1% increase. 7% academic and athletic stipend restoration to bring those stipends back to where they were pre-recession. And then to continue lowering, or as our board chair would say, sunsetting the athletic fee by recommending that it be reduced from $75 to $50. And then a big hit among elementary principals and teachers is the restoration of hourly cafeteria monitors at the elementary level. Though this is put in the compensation highlights and is this part of the story, one of the things that you can't buy sometimes is time, that you can't buy quality time and additional support. And the more that I have learned about what those employees were able to provide in terms of additional support for those schools so that they could focus in on individualizing instruction and working in professional learning communities, I believe it's something that we need to look to restore. I am frequently asked why I believe strongly, given the scarcity of dollars post-recession, of providing across-the-board meritorious increases to our staff. Hopefully, much of what I shared up to this point supported why I believe that. But I want to go ahead and stress that prior to the recession, the concept of our current pay scales was an annual step increase to enable teachers and other employees to build on their retirement, to support their families, and to be rewarded for dedicating their talents, expertise, and a life's work to the service of children, public education, and the ideals of prospering future generations of American citizens to contribute to making our society and world a better place. Our educators and staff are evaluated according to continued rising and rigorous standards of performance. I believe that they earn it and deserve it every year. I would anticipate that most of us would recall how a teacher or an educator, even if it was just one, reached down to help when no one else was there. As you can visualize from our recent trend, we are just now, over the past couple of years, beginning to regain some consistency and rhythm following years where employees received little or no additional compensation for doing the same amount, if not more, hard work. Part 3 of this budget proposal includes maintaining, increasing, and targeting human resources to support students and staff in the delivery of high-quality instruction. The highlights in this section include the addition of 12 general education teachers. 10 of those are middle school teachers to support curriculum enhancements and potentially, as we have a focus group looking right now, for the capacity to offer more everyday math where needed. 2 additional ESOL teachers, 11 instructional technology assistants. Right now we have those positions in terms of troubleshooting and supporting the integration of technology in the classrooms spread pretty thin across our organization. Feedback over the last 2 years has been consistent that we need the one-to-one support, 1 per school. This would enable that. 24 special education personnel, 1 ID mild teacher and 2 ID mild paraeducators, 1 autism teacher and 2 autism paraeducators, 4 early childhood special education teachers and 8 early childhood special education paraeducators, 1 social worker, 1 psychologist, 1 occupational therapist, and 1 speech therapist, and an autism coordinator. And finally, an additional transportation dispatcher. As our needs have increased, and I'm going to illustrate this more in a second, the intensity and the scope of needs that is increased in the area of special education, it affects all of our schools and all of our classrooms. and we need to add additional supports to provide them what they deserve. One aspect of a quality school division might be described as meeting the needs of each student, especially those who need our individual and collective support the most. Our limited English proficient population is growing, and there is a large gap in their performance when compared with all students. And while our overall enrollment has declined this year, as noted earlier, our students with disabilities has increased, and most dramatically in the areas of autism and developmentally delayed. These students require intensive support in order to have the opportunities they need for success. And though I remain fundamentally in disagreement with the continued conflict between federal mandates, and that we still test students based on one federal law when they have an education plan that is in conflict, that is based on another law, we must continue to strive to close that achievement gap in every level of the process for special education students, including the identification process, including early intervention, and include making sure that they have additional supports at the classroom level. The next several slides summarize the overall funding being projected and where it is recommending to be spent. FY 2017 expenditures total $287 million, which represents $17.3 million or 6.4% increase over the FY 2016 budget. With the breakdown by category, you can see, as you have noted in the past, that the lion's share of the funding is directed to instruction. The breakdown by object provides a vivid reminder of our appreciation and reliance on people. We are a people business, and they're doing the quality work, as salary and benefits make up roughly 85% of the total budget. Here you see budgeted amounts by funding stream, with the largest amount continuing to be from the state. Regarding our trends in state and local funding based on projections, you can see that the state has steadily increased since the downturn, but still, even after an ambitious budget proposal from the governor, is still not equal to pre-recession levels. Local funding, as you can see, has remained relatively flat. So in reviewing our bottom line, you will note that the additions to the four categories here exceed current projected funding levels, which at this time leaves a $12.6 million funding gap. By 2017, revenues, less CIP revenues, and less the gap total $274.6 million, which represents a $4.7 million or 1.7% increase over the FY 2016 adopted budget. Over the past 3 years, our school division's ability to address areas such as increasing compensation and resources has been primarily due to utilizing strategies that would yield additional budget capacity, not due to increased funding. This year, unfortunately, many budget factors and drivers that went in our favor for an annual budget have unfortunately gone in the wrong direction to support finding additional internal budget capacity, short of going back to making reductions or receiving additional revenue. So at this jumping off point, school board, knowing that it is still very early, we face a significant, challenging budget gap. While I am cognizant and sensitive to proposing a larger gap in this recommended budget that combined over the last 3 years is actually larger than those three combined, I want the board to be aware of the needs that were identified prior to the realization that funding levels were much lower than we had hoped for. During future work sessions and discussions, these items will be discussed in context with what is being proposed and recommended for consideration in future years. So we remain in a mode of considering reduction and reallocation strategies to balance budgets. These next few slides are a reminder that most of the stones have been turned over to find additional internal capacity or to reduce bottom line costs. see here the additional significant gap closing measures that have been used over the last 7 or 8 years. As we move forward in this budget season together, these are the viable options for reducing or eliminating the current funding gap. The only option under our control are continued reallocations. And there are several unknowns, as you're aware, that will become clearer over the course of the next few months. You can see those there. Then listed here are the critical budget dates over the next few months. So finally, I think fitting, given that yesterday we celebrated Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Each year, I afford myself, thanks to our principals and teachers, the opportunity to engage with over 300 students in conversations regarding their day-to-day experiences in our schools, their ideas, their feedback, and their dreams of the future. I hear every day what our students' dreams are for the future, and they're ambitious and they're exciting, from doctors to lawyers to artists to marine biologists to nurses to firemen to, no, they haven't said superintendent yet. Because I tell them that that wasn't what I was thinking about at that age. But the one thing, I even had a little girl the other day tell me, you know, just blank expression, dead serious, I'm going to be the President of the United States. Our students have dreams, and our function in public education in Spotsylvania County is to give them opportunity and access, encouragement, support. If maybe we have to hold them up when they can't hold themselves up, and that requires commitment, it requires additional resources, and I am confident that as we look to educate the whole child, and to me that's what this quote from Martin Luther King comes down to, is we have to look at what we want students to become, and we want them to become well-rounded contributors to our society, but we want to look at every aspect of education. It's not just about preparing them for assessments and tests. Many of our students need more social and emotional and mental health support than has ever been needed, and they need it in school. And so I encourage you, as you deliberate, as you consider this budget proposal, as I've said before, we always know that we're going to find our true north when we always look at what is best for our students. So thank you for this opportunity to present the budget to you, and I look forward to our work together. Thank you.
Dr. Baker, thank you for your presentation. Adroitly done. I appreciate the effort that was put together in order to present that by your staff. And what I'd like to do is move on to 3.01, starting with Ms. Shelley, and give my peers an opportunity to make their comments, and then I'll finish.
Thank you, Mr. Braswell. Thank you, Dr. Baker. That was wonderful. I made some notes, but I'm going to try to be brief. I noticed that you're dedicating this budget to the students, and with that, that just proves this is a student organization. If it wasn't for our students, none of us would be here. So to dedicate this budget to the students was very appropriate. And I noticed that collaboration was a common thread throughout, and because we all have to be collaborative. It's a community. We are a community. The students, the parents, the staff, the entire Spotsylvania County, we all have to work together, and that was something else that just stood out with me. I also liked your point when you said our students are more than a test score. That's not why we're here. We're here to educate the whole child, not for some test that is required at the end of the year. So thank you for bringing that up. I liked all your points, the increased compensation, the stipends, the lower of the athletic fees, bringing back those cafeteria monitors. That's huge in our elementary schools and our middle schools, because we have teachers giving up part of their planning times. We have paraeducators who could be working in the classrooms, and they're giving up that time to be with students or to be preparing lessons, and that will give them back into what they're supposed to be doing, why they're here, to be the student, to be everything student driven. The new positions are great. I love that we're adding more for special education, because our special education needs are going through the roof. And with that, I wanted to also mention we have our SEAC, some of our SEAC members here today. So welcome. Thank you for being here. I noticed a lot of these things that were cut, some of the budget requests that were in your budget, I guess initially, and cut, that were about another $6 million. I know we can't afford to have everything, but I mean, a lot more, it was more special education services, and one day we're going to be able to put more, and these are wonderful things that we're starting, and we're going to get there. So, Dr. Baker, I'm very pleased with your presentation and with what I'm seeing in the budget, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Shelley. Dr. Meyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Baker and staff, very well done. I think what is a highlight is that you've hit the targets within our 6-year plan of what we need to move forward as a school division. And, you know, you summed it up with the resources and the funding, the resources with the teachers, the paraeducators. I didn't see any bus drivers, but it was just curious that I did notice the special education teachers, by all means, the 12 general education teachers, when we do our workshop time or work session time, to go into how you arrived at the 12, you know, as to where those needs are. I know it isn't, the reason I'm bringing it up, because while we have a declining enrollment, yet we have a need for staff. That's something we need to be able to explain clearly of what that need is. And it's there. It's just we need to be able to say that. I am wholly supportive of the budget. I reacted on Facebook to a question. I think Mrs. Blaylock had brought it up, you know, when we're talking about our teachers and compensation. And it just amazes me when you think of it, all the years. The teachers prepare our professionals, our doctors, our lawyers, our engineers, our medical staff, our scientists, and yet the pay that goes for the teachers is nowhere comparable to the pay that's associated with those professions for which our teachers are to be thanked. They're the ones that make that happen. So I am really thankful that you did and were able to include in this budget presentation a small compensation, a very reasonable compensation request, and I am wholly supportive of the budget. I just want to take 2 seconds also, and I was remiss in when we met this last week, to thank the voters on this will be my second term. I know that Ms. Shelley and Mr. Blaine, you know, all of us were reelected, and I want to thank the voters for giving me this opportunity to serve and give back to the community in support of our parents, teachers, and staff. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Dr. Meyer. Ms. Blaylock, please.
Thank you, Mr. Braswell. Great job as always. I think you and your staff, the reason you are having such success with children is because children are first. It's very simple. If they're your goal and they're the main objective, you'll always do okay. And I couldn't be more proud to work with this superintendent to the right of me and his cabinet that's in the front row. Talk about being able to have full trust. And that's a good feeling as a school board member that serves as a governing body of a school division as large as ours. As he pointed out in the slides, we are the 11th largest with almost 24,000 students, the largest employer in Spotsylvania County by a landslide. There's over 3,000 employees in this county in the school division. So I often say to Dr. Baker, it's almost like you get up and run a little city every day. And you're running it with the most valuable, precious people in the world, which is our children of the community. So this is always a big deal. Budget night's always a big night for us. It's kind of like a moment, but there's been so much work that went into this. This wasn't overnight, and I know Dr. Baker and his cabinet have worked on this for the last few months. He's met with board members, kept us briefed. We know what we're looking at. And so Dr. Meyer had said it well when we actually will go into workshops now as board members and we'll start asking our questions. Again, I want to really say thank you for putting back the cafeteria monitors. Having some elementary students myself, having a set of twins in the second grade, I know how important that is and the support that's going to give to your elementaries. So being able to restore some things that I saw cut years ago, and I've said this before, Dr. Meyer was with me at the time. If I remember 2008 being the last year that there was a little bit of relaxation, and it hasn't been right since. So to start seeing some things right themselves a little bit, as my colleague, Mr. Braswell, says, sunsetting the activity fee, the participation fee. The last 2 years, Dr. Baker and his staff has started that. I can tell that the community and the parents are really appreciating that. So we're in the right direction. We can't control things like the composite index, and Ms. Gaines won't be able to tell us the final numbers till about March. So, I mean, everybody needs to be aware that some things are out of our control, and we really won't know numbers till then. The one thing I do know is that we're going to need our county supervisors to support the school division. So I would ask anybody in my district of Lee Hill to reach out to your supervisor. Let them know that you watched this budget presentation, you know what happened, and you know that we're going to be needing some more funds above level funding this time. Level funding's only going to get us so far, because level funding becomes, it's not really level funding. It's just the same amount you got last year. But with the needs growing, and then Dr. Meyer alluded to this as well, we will make our clear case as to why our needs are there. This is not rocket science. The needs are here. So I would encourage all the community members to encourage their supervisor to support the public school system in Spotsylvania County. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Blaylock. Mr. Twigg.
Thank you, sir, and thank you, Dr. Baker, for the well-informed presentation. I am impressed that we have upped our graduation rate to 90.2%, and steadily, that's a steady increase over the past 5 or so years from slide 30. That's all wonderful. The only issue becomes 12 million. What are we going to get for that? Are we going to get a higher graduation rate? Are we going to look at it from that perspective, or are we going to just simply chase all these wonderful things, which are all wonderful? Don't get me wrong there. Practically and rhetorically, I do ask, however, how are we going to pay for it? And that's a decision that we as a board will effectively make, and we'll do our best to come up with as much of that cash as we can to make as much of these good things happen. However, I do guess that eventually will become an issue for both our county board and our citizens who vote for tax increases. I'm anxious to work with this board to work all of this out. I guarantee we'll do our best, and thank you for the opportunity to share a couple of thoughts.
Thank you, Mr. Twigg. Mr. Blaine, please, sir.
I think the budget that we've just seen, given the facts that Dr. Baker has given, is exemplary. And I applaud you for doing what you've been able to do. But I'd like to put a different platform out for just a couple of minutes. The fundamental question we're facing now is a little 6-word term: values. What's important in our society? And our children are our most valuable resource, bar none. We all agreed with that. And where we go is going to be dependent upon, unfortunately, money. This last several months, I made it a point to get the names of every single voter in Spotsylvania County, Salem District, that voted in the last 2 elections. I knocked on every single one of those doors. I was exhausted, frankly, on November 3rd when the election was over, and I'm thankful too. And I found 50 to 60% of the people at home. And I had many conversations with parents. And I'd like to say for our staff here that most people were highly laudatory and complimentary about the quality of education that they're getting. Very positive. And I also had people tell me consistently, why aren't we spending more money on our children? Why do we aim at the lowest common denominator? And I had no answer for that except values, frankly. There's a couple of the concerns I have relative to the budget. We had 10 schools that were on warning last year. They got off warning. A huge accomplishment. And a lot of those schools had special help to get there. I'm just concerned that we're able to continue providing them the special help, and that may be taken care of, I don't frankly know, so that they can stay there. Our staff is subject to poaching, and as our neighborhood school divisions look for employees, and they look at the achievement that we just learned about in this division, what do you think they're saying about our teachers? We got a good set of teachers, they're saying. We can offer a lot more money. So I'm very concerned with that. I would like to see a 2% raise, not a 1% raise. I think our children deserve that. Our percentage of money coming from the county has diminished consistently for the last several years. Level funding means negative funding because the cost of living is going up and the cost of everything else, the level funding doesn't cut that problem. So we need to shoot for significantly more. So you'll hear me talking, I'm sure, during our budget, of the need for salary increases. I think that's very important. I'm very happy to see the reduction of $50 to $25 in the cost of athletic fees. I'm also very concerned, as Barron and I have talked about this many times, the need in our primary grades for additional help so we can help kids at the time when they have a problem and not next week or next month. Because if you don't catch that ideal time for teaching, sometimes it doesn't come back. So I think that's enough of my comments, but at least you get a sense of where I'm coming from. And I mean this to be very complimentary about the presentation and the development of the budget. But the values problem has to be shared by us and our colleagues on the county board.
Mr. Blaine, thank you. Ms. Graham.
Good evening. I'd like to start by thanking Dr. Baker and LaShawn Gaines and her finance staff for preparing such a fantastic budget presentation for us this evening. I would also like to, take my turn and ask the principals and the vice principals in the audience to stand up because you guys are a key part to reading our strategic plan, and we would like to give you a thank you. They're not standing up. They stand up for Ray. In our work session, I'm sure that we will be updated on the 48.2% increase in the capital projects, as well as we'll eventually get the final number in the increase on VRS and insurance, which is a very large part of the increase in our budget, which are costs that we cannot help. I would like to say that our budget definitely meets the needs of our students. They're not just the needs that we randomly picked out of the sky, and it clearly on the list of stuff that we were not able to do, we picked the most important ones to focus on. The other thing is that I always get very frustrated at this time of all the unfunded mandates from the state and federal that we have to meet and figure out a way to pay for every year, in addition to serving the students. And I would also like to point out that it is very sad still at this time that we have to go through this extra step in this process, and that our county cannot come to terms with providing our school system with a revenue sharing agreement, so that we would have a better idea of what percentage of the budget we will be getting, and we could move this process much faster and actually figure out a way to serve our students in a more timely manner. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gramp. Ms. Blaylock wanted to add some clarification.
I just had a question I had forgot to ask. As we prepare as board members to come to work sessions with our deeper questions, could you clarify that transportation dispatcher, is that coming out of transportation's budget or special education's budget?
It's going to come out of the transportation
Okay.
budget, but it is being directed towards the increased needs in special transportation. But it would work in concert with other dispatchers. But there's a need for additional dispatchers, and the main increase in that need is coming because of the increased need in special transportation.
I want to thank all my colleagues for their comments and their support of our instructional leader in his presentation of the budget. I also am very supportive of Dr. Baker and the effort that he laid forward with his staff to prepare this budget for our hearing. It reminds me that a divine scripture tells us that without vision we perish. And Dr. Baker has done an exceptional job of providing a vision that we can all encapsulate and put our hands around, so that we can move this division in a direction for success, focused on what I term the main effort, and that's our children. The budget also provides us with the ability to maneuver in such a way with additional FTEs so that we can address areas where we need the additional assistance. It is evident based off of last year's budget and how we took additional personnel and put them in the right place at the right time and moved our division from 10 schools with warning down to 2, shows that that is a very effective use of our resources. When I was in the Army, one of the most important things that the commander had to do was to determine when he needed to employ his reserve. And in this particular case, we need to give our instructional leader the reserve that he needs so that he can affect the results that we've seen thus far. So I appreciate what you've done thus far, and it's our responsibility, I believe, as a board to try to sell the idea that he needs a larger reserve so that he can properly employ it for the benefit of our main effort, which is our children. So that being said, I thank you, I thank your staff, and we look forward to engaging on a deeper, in a deeper way, and a lot deeper way, to discuss this budget and flesh out the best budget possible so that we can do our very best by our children. After all, the budget is nothing more than a financial representation of what we value. And so with that being said, we'll move on. I'll close my comments and we'll move on to action item 4.01, board assignments and committees, and I'll lead that over. We were initially going to have board assignments ratified, if you will, on the 25 January meeting. However, we had some members that needed to attend their committees a little earlier, and in those particular cases, those committee members had voting responsibilities, and so we wanted to, if you will, anoint them so that they would be able to go and perform the duties that we have appointed them to do. So with that being said, everyone has had an opportunity to see the board assignments, committee assignments. With that being said, is there a motion on the floor to accept or adopt those committee assignments?
I'll make that motion.
And I'll second the motion.
Properly motioned by Ms. Blaylock and seconded by Dr. Meyer. Is there any discussion?
I have discussion.
Go ahead, Ms. Blaylock.
On the new assignment for the Joint Fleet Committee that I previously said on that I will be removing from this year to take on another committee. I believe we have Dr. Meyer in place for that. There is a meeting this Thursday. I wanted to make him aware that it was so close. If you could attend, if not, I would be glad to attend for you, but 1 o'clock this Thursday. Okay. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Any other comments? Hearing no comments, we'll call for the vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposes? No opposes? Motion carries 7-0. Moving on to 4.02, ratification of the school board's decision letter regarding a student matter, 2015-001. Dr. Martin.
On January 11th, the school board met in closed meeting to consider student matter 2015-001 as permitted by section 2.2-3711A2 of the Code of Virginia. The board has since issued a decision regarding this matter, which was communicated to the parents by letter dated January 13, 2016. Recommendation is that the school board ratifies the decision communicated to the parents regarding student matter 2015-001 in a letter dated January 13, 2016.
Thank you, Dr. Martin. We heard, is there a motion on the floor?
I'll make that motion.
Ms. Shelley made a motion to ratify. Second?
I'll second that motion.
Second by Dr. Meyer. Any discussion? Oh, as I was, no discussion. We'll call for a roll call vote, starting with Ms. Graham.
Gramp, aye.
Blaine, aye.
Braswell, aye.
Blaylock abstain.
Meyer, aye.
Shelley, aye.
Motion carries 5-0 with 2 abstentions. Moving on to our adjournment, 5.01. We have a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Ms. Gramp has a motion to adjourn. Second. Ms. Shelley has seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And I take it there's no opposers. Motion carries. Meeting closed at 7:35.